NutraCast.
Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 1 of the Sunday Night Sports Wrap, the flagship show of the SNSW Network with Rayshawn Buchanan, Dave Clarke, Bob Kelly, Mike Marcangelo, the best producer in the game, Craig D'Alessandro. I am Joe Malkin, and again, welcome to the Sunday Night Sports Wrap. We're doing this a little bit more for real this time around, guys. Just to give everybody kind of a rundown of where this started a couple months ago. We did a show in June when we all came back together, and we decided to start doing it monthly. And once we did our show in July, we said we're going to do this for real. So over the next 2 hours, we're going to give you a rundown of what's to come on the Sunday Night Sports Wrap, the SNSW network, and kind of give you a little bit of history of where we came from and why we're here now. We'll be answering questions, responding to your comments. Don't be shy. Let us know whether it's during the show or after the show. You can reach out to us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We also have a YouTube where all of our episodes will be uploaded to afterwards. And you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeart. On Twitter, we are at Night Wrap. On Instagram, we are at Night Wrap SNSW. We are Sunday Night Sports Wrap on Facebook, the SNSW Podcast on YouTube. So if you need to find any of those, the links will be in the descriptions below and on our Buzzsprout page at snsw.buzzsprout.com. Buzzsprout. Say that 5 times fast. Before we get into the show, we have a lot to talk about today, from the Bruins to the Celtics to the Red Sox to the NFL. And we're going to try and get to everything we can. But before we get started, I would like to wish Rayshawn a happy 30th birthday. Rayshawn turned 30 on Friday. I think he might be the youngest one here. You're the baby of the show, Ray. Happy birthday.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. It's a heck of a birthday gift.
Yeah, we're glad we could provide it for you. So really quick, I do want to go around the room. Again, we've come a long way here, guys, and I'll start with Rayshawn because we're going to go alphabetically, except for Craig, who will get to go last before me. But Ray, give us a few words here, man, as we open up.
Yeah, no, I'm just excited to do this. I remember joining you guys back in I think 2010 or 2011, and we had some big dreams back then, and we accomplished a lot of great things then. So I'm happy to bring this back. I'm happy to start the journey with you guys. Just for those that are listening out there, you can expect a lot of hot takes, but with sound reasoning. So we're going to bring it. And like I said, just the more that you listen, I just hope that you guys, subscribe and, like what you're hearing and, be inspired.
DK, Dave Clarke.
What's up, everybody? What's up, fellas? Joe, as you know, nothing makes me happier than hanging out with the 5 of you guys, even if it is digital. I'm all the way out in sunny California. It's about 1 billion degrees out, but I've got my Massachusetts homesick candle burning, ready to get the smells.
What's that smell like?
Smells like home. Smells like rage and Dunkin' Donuts. And I think that it's really getting me in the mood, to talk about some New England sports, some national sports with 5 of the biggest sports fanatics that I know. And I just want to get into it. I'm ready.
Bob Kelly.
I mean, I just couldn't be more excited at this point. I know we've been talking about this for years. I'm just happy it's actually finally happening. I couldn't think of a better 5 people to be here with. And at this point, just like DK, I'm ready to get it going, guys. I'm ready.
Mike Marcangelo.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo everyone else's sentiments. We've been hearing for so long, like, you guys are actually pretty good. And like, we've also noticed that we're kind of ahead of the curve on a few articles and a few opinions that come out. So it's our time to prove it and our time to really shine. And I'm just so stoked to be here with all of you guys, and I'm ready to go.
Producer and the man who we literally could not do this without, Craig D'Alessandro.
In this time of plague and sadness in this world, I would say the one glimmer of hope is that for the first time in about 10 years, I am in charge of all your butts again.
He feels the control. So, and I don't have too much to echo there. I'm just so happy to be back with you guys. During all of this, I think we've all found this a little tough, and that's kind of where this came out of. I think Bob kind of brought this up about 3 months ago and said, "Hey guys, let's do something." And originally Dave was not even a part of this group. It was just the 5 of us, and Bobby said, "Hey, I invited Dave." And honestly, I mean, I know I say we couldn't do it without Craig, but there's a lot of things that literally would not have been possible without Dave. So I know we're kind of kissing each other's butts here right now, but we're back, and this is something that started 13 years ago, 2007, and Mike was one of the founding members of well, we're just going to call you found the whole thing. It was just you. Mike was the founder of the Sunday Night Sports Wrap and started at Dean College in Franklin when we were all students there, and we really worked hard for a long time to get that show not only from an hour long but to 2 hours long. And Mike, you said it best. A lot of people said, "Hey, you guys are pretty good," and we developed a pretty good following, and now 10 years after the run of the show ended, Bobby comes to us and says, "Hey, let's talk sports again." And here we are now with a little bit of everything. We're all over social media. We have a website with blogs. We're going to do a podcast, and to kind of get into that a little bit and let everybody know what we're going to do. We're going to do this Sunday Night Sports Wrap to stay true to the name. Once a month on a Sunday evening. It sounds like it's going to be the second Sunday of every month. And every other week of the month, we're going to have an hour-long show that comes out on Thursdays. If you can't stay for this whole show or you missed some of it, it will be available on wherever you get your podcast. Again, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart. You can find the links on Buzzsprout at snsw.buzzsprout.com. And you'll be able to listen to everything that you miss, and we're going to be up on YouTube too, so we're really going to cover everything. We have some extension podcasts that we're going to come out with over the next 2 weeks. The first one is Armchairs, Ask Athletes, where we sit down with an athlete and basically have an hour-long conversation. And we'll get into more of that in just a second. And then the other one that we're going to do is the New England Championship rewrap, which was the really Bobby, came up with this, and Dave came up with the Armchairs, Ask Athletes, and 2 great podcasts that you're really going to want to listen to. And the championship rewrap is basically us going through the 12 championships won by the Patriots, the Red Sox, the Celtics, and the Bruins over the last 20 years. And we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. But let's start with Armchairs Ask Athletes, because this was the first thing we recorded as a team, and one of the first things we came up with. And what was great about it is Dave came in and said, "Hey, I have this MMA fighter." And I don't think honestly, the 5 of you are probably bigger MMA fans than I am combined. But because of this interview, I have become a bigger MMA fan and cannot wait to not only watch her fight Tuesday, but just in general, even last night. So Armchairs Ask Athletes, we sit down with an athlete. once a month generally is when we're going to do it. Release schedule will be updated based on the athlete and when we can release it. The first episode of this is going to come out tomorrow morning, and Dave and Mike sat down with MMA fighter, should say local to the Boston area. She's from Norfolk, Mass. And she sat down with Mike and Dave last week, and that's going to come out tomorrow. She has a fight on Tuesday night. But, guys, you spoke to Hilarie Rose, MMA fighter who's fighting in the Contender Series tomorrow night, looking for her to punch her ticket to the UFC. And tell us what that was like for you guys, Dave.
I mean, for me, it was a great experience. We've been putting a ton of work into this live show, a ton of work into the pre-recorded podcast and setting up this network. And Mike and I, logged a lot of man hours in setting this thing up, but you don't know what's going to happen because it's kind of dependent on your guest. And when Hilarie came on, it was right from the jump, such a pleasant surprise because neither of us know her in real life. We reached out, we know she's fighting on Dana White's Contender Series, which has produced a ton of UFC superstars, including, Sugar Sean O'Malley, who fought last night, who's a rising star in the sport. And we just wanted to see if she'd come out and do it. And she was so gracious with her time. But the biggest thing was she came on and she was just such a pleasure to talk to. She's so charismatic, so incredibly warm and friendly, and so knowledgeable about the sport, a sport that she's been working her butt off at since she was 14 years old. Mike, I think you had the same reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I share the exact same sentiment. When you have someone booked, you're often wondering what are they going to be like, and within 30 seconds of talking to her, I said this 1,000 times, she made us feel so much more comfortable than we actually were, because DK, and I mean I can speak for myself, I was nervous. I know DK probably was too, because he was doing all the heavy lifting on that on that podcast and really asking all the great questions. But Hilarie just did such a great job opening up, and I think for someone, if you're not a huge MMA fan like DK, if maybe you're just you're just kind of a casual fan, or maybe you have no interest in it at all, this podcast has something for every single person. Right? There's stuff about the UFC, there's stuff about all her background, but then there's a real life story that can affect anybody that we know or that we've ever come across. And I think that was the most gripping part of it. So I think I know that we're probably going to play just a small clip of it. I think for you, are we going to play a clip, Craig?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Don't give me the look. I think you guys will all know. Once you hear it, you're gonna fall in love with her voice. I was listening to our podcast in the car the other day. That's the true test, is hearing yourself on the radio speakers in the car. And the entire time I was like, okay, this is real, and it's because of her. It was because of Dave Kelly. So I'm really excited for you guys Dave Clarke. So I'm really happy for you guys to listen to this.
I have a friend and a teammate, Shane. He was dating a girl in high school, and he showed her a triangle choke from the ground. And she went to college that following year and called him and said, I was getting sexually assaulted, and I put the guy in the move that you showed me, I put him to sleep. Did I kill him? And she was able to get away. But it shows that he was just dating this girl for fun and showed her this triangle, but her instincts kicked in and she was able to do that and put him to sleep. So, just if a girl comes to 5 jiu-jitsu classes and you learn just a few things, I mean, it could really help any girl, even a guy,
Yeah.
Little kids, it doesn't matter.
And so you hear that clip from her, and you can hear just, again, the passion just telling that story. And she was like that for the whole interview. So, tomorrow morning, really check out Armchairs Ask Athletes and listen to this whole podcast, because she's phenomenal. She fights again Tuesday night, August 18th in Dana White's Contender Series. And, I know we're all going to be watching it. It's on ESPN Plus. So we'll all be watching it and looking for her to get her big start. And, guys, I really can't say enough about this. And she was just a great guest for us to get. And DK, couldn't have done it without you. And really excited for people to listen to this thing, because I think it's gold.
Yeah, and just you could tell as soon as you put on that podcast how comfortable she really made you two feel? You know, as soon as she got on, you could tell what an amazing guest she was, just because, you know, any nervousness that you could hear in any voices for the beginning of that went away within 2 minutes. So, like, I really implore everyone out there to listen to this, because this is one of the, you know, it may be our first interview, but this is honestly one of the best guests I've seen in an interview in quite some time. Just the way she was open, you can hear from that clip right there. That story is not just a regular story about MMA. That's a personal story that she shared from her life. You know, you don't see that much in most podcasts, most radio clips. So, like, the personal connection you guys had was definitely something you could hear from the moment that started.
Yeah, so again, I mean, we even talked briefly. Sorry, Joe. We even talked briefly inside the pod about what brings you into mixed martial arts and what gets you into it. And for a lot of people, you know, it's an athlete, it's a fighter. Like for me, guy from my hometown, Conor McGregor, brought a lot of people into that sport. You know what I mean? Got me super excited about it, and now I'm a fan of the sport. If you're looking for something to get you in, and you listen to this podcast, it might be Hilarie, because like I'm such a fan of hers after listening to it. And I know all the guys, and, you know, I know Mike is, and I know all the guys that listened to the pod afterwards immediately became a fan of hers. So if you're looking for access, if you're looking for a way in, if you're looking for something new to watch every week, I really think she can really bring you along, you know?
And now everybody's wondering, man, what? Conor McGregor's from his hometown? Where is he from? Well, they're from Cleveland, if you were wondering. And one more thing on that. You guys talk about this in the podcast, and it was one of my favorite parts of the podcast, Dave, where you asked the question of, was there any other sport that puts men and women on the same level other than UFC, mixed martial arts, fighting? And you use the example of tennis. And it's really interesting. And really just listen to the interview, even if it's for that part, because she gives a really good insight on that. And it is true. And that's kind of what makes me want to watch it more, especially the featherweight stuff, the quick-moving fighters. I've watched some heavyweight fights in the past, and those just get boring. But regardless, so Dave's from Cleveland, and we're gonna so again, Armchairs Ask Athletes tomorrow morning. Check that out wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to find out where our podcasts are available, go to snsw.buzzsprout.com. You can also find them on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeart. And the interview will also be on YouTube, uploaded tomorrow morning, and that might be news to Craig. So let's move on from Armchairs Ask Athletes, and let's go into something that's happening up in Toronto right now. And let's talk about the hockey bubble and this Bruins Hurricanes series. The Bruins lead that series 2-1, as we're talking about it here this afternoon at 5:18 on Sunday, August 16th. But they play tonight at 8 p.m. In Game 4 and can take a commanding 3-1 lead. And there's a few big points here, and I think we found out what our biggest point was on Saturday morning. And I know we all have some pretty strong feelings about this, but it was announced Saturday morning, that Tuukka Rask was opting out of the rest of the season. The starting goaltender for the Boston Bruins, who has been around since 2011, has a Stanley Cup, ring, basically. He's got a championship ring from that series in 2011, and he's been around ever since. They signed him to a big contract, $7 million a year, and now he opts out Saturday morning before Game 3 of this series. And I know Bob and DK have kind of been the most outspoken about this one. I want to start with Dave on this, and it partially because I think I'm starting to share the same opinion he has. But Dave, I want to start with you. What do you think about Tuukka opting out of the season before Game 3 yesterday?
It's funny that I get to start this off in defense of Tuukka Rask, because I know that there's going to be some Tommy guns coming his way after I go. But I have to say, it's been a weird time for everybody. There's a pandemic and the guy's got a newborn at home. With anything in sports, in life, when you apply context to a situation, you understand more about it. And yeah, it was my initial reaction when I heard that Tuukka opted out of the rest of the season, come playoff time when we need him the most. And he's obviously bottled talent, our most talented goaltender at the club, but he wants to go home and he wants to take care of his family. After a few minutes of reflection and thinking about it, it's like, some things are more important than hockey. You know, he said it himself. I don't know what you guys think.
Sorry, I see. I just did it too, Mike. So you're okay. I just made them one person. Bob, go ahead.
So as much as I completely agree with you on the pandemic, Mike, I know you have these same exact sentiments as me. I completely agree with the pandemic, keeping your family safe. Listen, I was putting on masks before it was even warranted or before it was mandated. But this man lost every sense of benefit of the doubt for the past 5 years when it comes to what we've seen out of him. I completely understand opting out for the safety of your family, but when it comes down to it, to opt out a couple hours before Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Divisional Finals, like it comes down to a point where it's just not something that you give him the benefit of the doubt anymore. I mean, Mike, I know you have these same exact sentiments.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my first thought, right, was to just go at Tuukka for being as soft-served ice cream, because that's what he is. But I'm not going to say that because he left, because we don't really know what's going on in his home life, right? I don't know the state of his family. So, I just can't think of any other Boston sports athlete during a playoff series saying things like, we're just here to have fun. I don't want to stress too much about the results, and it's just August hockey. So if you separate him leaving, to go take care of business or be with his family, to when he was there, how he acted, and how he portrayed himself, this is Tuukka. This is what he is. This is always what he has been. And if that doesn't irritate you as a hockey fan or as a Boston sports fan, I don't know what was, because this guy, when he was here, was not here.
There's a couple of takes you can have on this, right? So he's done this before. In the middle of the season, he up and left and went back to Finland. It was a family emergency, and we don't really know what it was. Right. He bails out in the middle of a playoff series. I've always thought he was pretty soft and kind of a bum. I mean, is he a world-class goaltender? Absolutely. You can't even argue it. He is. He's one of the best in the world. I mean, he has started for the Finland national team. He does have a Stanley Cup. He's one of the highest paid goaltenders in the league. But why opt out hours before Game 3? And this is kind of the interesting thing about sports, isn't it? Dave, kind of going along with what you said, is if any of us or anybody out there listening told their boss they had a family emergency, had to leave work, generally most of the time, I know there's some bosses out there, some managers that wouldn't, care. But for the most part, they're going to let us go. But what's the big difference between Tuukka Rask and Joe Malkin is that I'm not a world-class athlete, and everything I do isn't in the media. Because obviously they had to release a press release about it. Right, Bob?
Okay, so I completely get what you're saying there, but when it comes down to it, is if it's not your first offense doing that or having that extreme emergency circumstance, then guess what? It is no longer valid. If you remember 3-4 years ago, it came down to the last game where the Bruins, all they had to do was win. And Tuukka, last game of the season, decided he had a bellyache and had to sit out that last game of the season because he had a stomach ache. It wasn't something that, was a family related. He just was a little sick. So it's winning in, man. There is no circumstances in there, if you're a professional athlete, winning in, that you can't play that game, especially if you're the goalie. That's the most important position on the ice.
Sure. Now everybody's different, right? Like Jordan plays with the flu, and Tuukka can't play with a bellyache. I get that side of it, but the point of saying, we're not going to be in the public eye. So at the same time, who are we to say? And again, I can't disagree that he's soft. I've always thought he was soft. I always thought he was a bum. Whatever reason he went home to Finland is his business. The first time, not this time. But sitting out with a bellyache is tough. And I always think about that when you go to work and you have a stomach ache, or you need to figure it out. I mean, unless it's putting you in bed, you probably should just figure it out. But everybody is different at the same time. And if they didn't release anything, I mean, what if, this is a big what if, but what if he really just didn't want to play? What if he's done? and didn't want to be around. And why can't you go to your team? You go to your GM, you go to Don Sweeney, or you go to Cassidy and say, hey, I'm not feeling it. I don't want to do this. And then at that point they can say, all right, sit on the bench. Yarrow will start. If we need you, we'll go to you. Stick around at the end of the season or the end of the series even. We'll figure it out. That's the part that made it worse, was that it was in the middle of the series. Mike, go ahead.
So I have a couple of points on that. And again, I just want to stress, none of us know exactly what's going on at home, right? So I'm less irritated about that he left, and I'm more irritated about the way he conducted himself while he was there. If his heart wasn't into it, listen, don't go. Opt out before the season, before the bubble starts. And listen, we could say nothing about that. You want to stay home because family should be first. You have a newborn. All of those things that apply to him now applied to him a month and a half ago, and he chose to come here, and he chose to act so lackadaisical and nonchalant about actually being here and trying to win a cup. They were the President's Trophy winner. They were the best team in the Eastern Conference, the best team. And now they're the fourth seed. It's because it's not all his fault, but he wasn't great. He had like an .899 save percentage in the bubble and was letting up 3 goals a game. He did not want to be there.
Right. So you're leading right to what I had thought about. So unfortunately, he was already practicing social distancing before he left. Goals are coming in left and right. And I think that ties into his personality, right? If it's August hockey, I'm chilling. If we win, great. If we lose, well, there's always next year. You're in Boston, homie. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
We're here to win. So, like I said, whether it's O'Reilly, Esposito, or Ray Bork, whoever, if you're going to be mentioned with those names, you come here to win. And like I said, you're getting paid $7 million a year. There is no, you know what? Like I said, we qualified. I could care less about the qualifying statement. We get that. Yes, you want to be with your family, cool. But like you said, make that decision before you come out here. Don't have us thinking that we got all our troops coming in to war, so to speak, and then 2 games in, you're like, well, I'm cool. Because now I'm looking at you sideways if I'm your teammate. Because now I'm thinking we had a legit chance, and now it's like, well, okay. And like you said, they were the best team in the East all year, and now we get there, and they don't play well during the round robin tournament, and now they drop down. So it's just like, it's disappointing to see, but hopefully they can still find a way to to make some plays and go 3-1 tonight.
Boston sports fans are so funny, and as one of them, and I know I'm weird because I'm not a Pats fan, but I'm a Celtics fan. I'm a Bruins fan. But I've always said, depending on the team, you could be the same person and you could treat it completely differently. We all know in the 80s, everybody was all Celtics all the time, right? The way Celtics fan culture grew from that means that the way people watch the Celtics now, the way our dads taught us to watch the Celtics, and everybody taught, it was passed down to watch the Celtics, we watch it differently than we watch the Bruins. And I do find it so funny to listen to you guys talking about Rask and the Bruins right now, because I thought in my head, listening to Patriots fans all these years, I thought we were results oriented in this culture. And here we are with Tuukka Rask dropping out. We're playing better. They look great on Friday. There was somebody out of the locker room that was clearly dragging everybody down. Now, do I want to hear him say that stuff during the round robin? No. But did I care that much about the round robin? Not so much. If it was the playoffs, it's a different story. And was he doing it again in the playoffs? Sure. But now he's gone. If that was Bill Belichick and the Pats fans would be done talking about him that day. It'd be over. But now, because it's the Bruins, they're held to a weirdly different standard. Because he's a goalie, it's held to a weirdly different standard. Because he's the goalie that followed up Tim Thomas, who, despite being a little bit of a crazy person, was dying for the Bruins. He was laying out for the Bruins every single time. Rask followed him up, so he's held to a little bit of a different standard. It's a good thing that he's gone. Maybe it would have been good that he was gone a little bit sooner, sure. But we're up in that series, guys. It's times are good.
So why give him that deal though?
But so the deal's the deal. The deal's the deal. That he's here now. It is what it is. We're talking pragmatic. Pragmatically.
I would trade him.
So if you think about what a goalie is, though, in a hockey rink,
in a hockey game, they set that tone every single time. A goalie is the most important person on the ice, regardless of how good you have on defense, how good your center is, how good your right wing. It doesn't matter. If your goalie isn't up to par or your goalie isn't fired up for that game, then guess what? You're going home. And I think that was so clear for those first 4 games. Seeing the fight in the Bruins in those first 4 games was not the same team I watched all year. And the reason for that was because they knew that their goalie wasn't in it, period. You saw that last game. That was the fight and what we're looking for the Bruins this entire playoffs, these last 5 games. That's what we were looking for. And I think the moment that did it in that game for me, where I realized that we're better off, honestly, once he did leave, was that first power play where Halak just absolutely stood on his head, and you could see the entire team. You could see everyone on their team, their shoulders just went up, and it was just a different game from that one. They skated harder. They hit harder than I've seen them hit from the beginning of this playoffs. It's a different team as soon as you get a goalie there that actually cares about what's happening.
So to your point, DK, I think like the reason why we're hard on Tuukka is because if you look at the people that he shared a locker room with over the last 10 years, Zdeno Chara had his jaw wired shut and still skated last year. We had Patrice Bergeron, who had a collapsed lung, still played. We had players on that team that had a shattered femur and still skated their shift. But this guy, time in and time out, will not do or go the extra mile to be there for his team. So that's kind of why we're a little harder on him.
But his team knows that, Mike. You can see it. It's clear as day. You know what I mean? It was clear as day on Friday when they went out there on the ice. I mean, obviously they're not going to come out and make things worse. You know, these guys are pros. Char's been there for long enough and is a leader on the team enough that he knows he's not going to come out in the media and make things worse and throw gas on the Flames. But there's no way that a guy that skates with his jaw wired shut isn't having the same reaction as you guys when Rask is going home because of a tummy ache or whatever it was, you know, or not lacing him up because of a tummy ache. At the end of the day, it improved the team when he left. You know what I mean? He's gone. And to your point, Bobby, in hockey, the most freakish thing that I've ever seen happen is a goalie that no one's ever heard of standing on his head for an entire playoffs. Yeah, exactly. So what you can have happen in hockey is, because here's what I actually think happened. And like, I'm going to put my conspiracy Dave hat on for a second, but I really do think what happened is they said, hey, you're benched. Okay. Your play is terrible.
Halak wasn't playing great until yesterday either, though.
Right.
True, but I think they benched Rask. I think they went to him and they said, listen, the guys, it's not working in the locker room. It's not working on the ice. We're sitting you. Okay. Maybe in the next series, maybe in a couple games, maybe when we put our backups in, we might have to pull them in the game and you might get back in, but for now you're sitting. I think that was the last straw for him. And I think that's why he said, I'm going to go home. And it was a mutual consent thing.
So a slightly different, to go back to what Bobby just said, actually what you both just said about unknown guys standing on their heads and being great goalies. I mean, for a long time, one of the greatest things in hockey, and it's not in any other sport, is that every team has an emergency goalie. And generally, that emergency goalie is a state police officer, like they are with the Bruins when they're at least home. Yeah, the Zamboni driver, right? So, you know, this is one of the greatest parts of hockey. So that was one of my first questions when this came out yesterday was, great. Yaro's now our goalie. It's probably better, but what are they going to do? Stick Chara in there if he gets hurt? So this is where my mind goes of what's going to happen if something happens to Halak. But going off of what Dave said and kind of what Bobby said, I think we're all saying the same thing. It's a good thing that Rask is gone. And I think Dave has just resigned himself to the fact of, good, that done, like, let's get it over with. And I think Rayshon's in the same boat of, you know, trade him, get rid of him. And then you look at Mike and Bobby where it's more like, this guy's a bum. Yeah, all right, he's soft as soft serve ice cream. He's a bum. He always has been. And I look back at 2011, and Craig brought this up in our group chat of saying, you know, we always wanted Rask to be Tim Thomas, and now he is. Congratulations, Boston. Well, Craig's onto something there, because as Dave said, and as we all know, Tim Thomas is some nutbag. But I respect him because he never quit on his guys. He never quit on his team, and Tuukka Rask has done that time and time again throughout his entire career, whether he's playing or not, whether he's home with a stomach bug or he's in Finland. He has done this time in and time out over the last 10 seasons, and he's a below average playoff goalie. And I think signing Halak, because for so many years, I mean, sure, they had serviceable goalies, Anton Hudobin, McCarthy. We won't even mention Subban because he was awful. But they had to bring in somebody like Halak who was going to be able to pick up the pieces if something like this happened. And I honestly do think they were looking into the future when they brought Halak in last season.
Well, I think what I don't want to speak for Bobby or for anyone else really, but like what really irritates me is he is so good. Like he makes hard saves look so easy, but then he makes the easy saves. Actually, sorry, he doesn't make the easy saves at all. He'll lose a 5-hole like instantly. And we could build a team around him. We've tried. They have tried. He should be the focal point because of his God-given ability. It's his lack of mental fortitude that keeps holding him back.
And that's what's the most frustrating part about everything is this isn't a new development. You know what I mean? This isn't something that we just learned yesterday about this dude. He got benched because he blew a 3-0 series lead against the Flyers. He was the goalie in that series. It wasn't Tim Thomas. It was Tuukka Rask. And that's when Tim Thomas came in. We won the cup the next year. And this has just been an ongoing thing for his entire career. You know, I know when it comes to, like we always said, you know, employment, you call in once, you call in twice, you're sick, you have a family emergency, that's fine. But when it's something that happens for a consistent 5 straight years, that every time one of these situations comes up, this is what happens, that's just a done case for me. If I was his boss and something like this happened again, regardless if he's a professional athlete, he gets paid millions, he's gone. If this is times 6, times 7, like, listen, man, we can't rely on you, period.
But he is gone, Bobby. There's no way you're ever going to see him in a Bruins jersey ever.
No, I don't think so either. I'm along with Rayshon. I don't mean to cut you off there, Dave, but that was going to be my next point. Is he's done. I mean, he's done. Whether they release him, whether they trade him, whatever they're going to do, whether they buy him out, I don't know what they're going to do and how. I don't even know totally how the hockey contracts work. But there's no way you see him in a Bruins jersey next season. He doesn't come back this year. And now your backup goalie is Dan Vladar. So, I mean, that's the
game, right?
Right. He's never played an NHL game. I actually just pulled his stats up. Actually, no, he did. He went 12-12-4 for Chicago in the 2015-2016 season.
Oh boy. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also have to talk about value. You know, I mean, I actually do agree with you, Ray. I would trade him too, but it's what are you going to get for him at this point? You know, it's a fat contract, and he just embarrassed himself on TV. So, like, I just wonder, like, I mean, I'm sure there's certain people you could convince, there's certain GMs you could convince, because like any sports GMs that aren't very good at their job, to take a guy like that into their locker room. But I mean, for right now, his value is just plummeted.
It has, and I mean, a $7 million contract. And what's the most interesting part of all of this is they're still the President's Cup trophy winners this year. They were still the 4 seed going into the playoffs because they lost their 3 round robin games to the Flyers, the Lightning, and the Capitals. But now they're up 2-1 in this series. Halak did not play well prior to yesterday's game, and now they have a chance to go up 3-1 in this series. Again, they play at 8 p.m. tonight, August 16th. So, you know, I want to shift gears on this topic, staying with the Bruins real quick for a few more minutes here. But, you know, something else that's been an issue with this team since the pause ended was players being deemed unfit to play. And 2 of the biggest names that have been on that list the whole time are Kasha and Pasternak. And my question to you guys is, does this change now that for lack of better term, cancer in the locker room of Tuukka Rask is gone? Is that going to change, or are we still going to have that problem with these 2 guys?
Well, with so with Pasta, I know he hurt himself celebrating in the double overtime winner the other night. So, I mean, I don't know if that's going to change. I think that's just a matter of him being 22 years old and not realizing that he's just played 3 straight hours of hockey and probably shouldn't jump up in the air full exertion when they win
Yeah, sure. Don't Martin Gramatica that thing. I understand. But the thing is he was doing that prior to them even getting to Toronto. He was doing that when they were skating at Warrior. I mean, those two guys were not in shape, but like you said, I mean, we were all 22 once. Is it fair to say, oh, maybe he's just 22, but at the same time we were in the middle of a pandemic. So if you weren't skating, well, we know you weren't out doing some of the other things that you probably could be doing. So I just find it very interesting that those are the two guys and they've been deemed unfit. And it has nothing to do with COVID. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's just they weren't ready to skate.
One thing that sticks with me with that is I think without Pasta, Casa is even bigger. And if you don't have Pasta, you need Casa. You need him. And there's no getting around that. He has to be on the ice. So it has to be one or the other, in my opinion.
So I think sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the Bruins have kind of proven themselves that they can make a deep run in the playoffs without Pastrnak. You know, he wasn't really prevalent last year when they needed him the most. Obviously you want him on the ice, and I think that, you know, the injuring yourself celebrating it's just bad luck, right? I mean, I don't hold that against him. Hopefully he's back on the ice soon, because as Bobby pointed out, if you can't have Pasta on there, you can't have both of those guys off. I mean, that's crushing to the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hopefully he does come back, because when you score at the rate that he can score, I don't remember his numbers, but I know that he can definitely put the puck in the net.
40.
How many goals did he get this year?
No, I don't know.
It's probably over 40. Over 40, I'm sure. But, you know, he's a Hart Trophy finalist, I think, as well. So it's like you don't always replace those type of guys. So hopefully, like I said, it was a boneheaded mistake, but hopefully he's able to come back, because let's say he's too talented, and let's say he can help us win, obviously.
48 goals, 47 assists. That's pretty good.
So
that's all right.
Come on.
So
95 points, you kidding me?
So to kind of wrap up our Bruins talk here, they go into Game 4 tonight against. Hang on a second.
Carolina.
Moving a little slow. Yeah, I know. I was there, but the computer's moving a little slow here. They go into Game 4 against Carolina. They have a 2-1 lead. They won the first game double overtime 4-2 after being delayed because of a 5 overtime game the night before. They lost 3-2, and then they won 3-1 yesterday. I'm thinking they're going to take this in 5. I think they win the next 2, especially now with Tuukka gone. As Dave said, I think this is going to propel them to a next level, and they take this in 5.
I got the Bruins in 6. I think I just think Carolina is tough. They're fast. They have a lot of the things that they do well. The Bruins can't really cover up when they don't have a full team. But I do think the Bruins are going to take this in 6. I think they are the better team out there. But this has been a great series to watch so far. But I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that the Bruins are going to go on a run here and win 2 games in a row.
Hockey playoffs, like we talked about, it's all about momentum. And I think that the one most positive thing that we've seen is that we've at least started to build some momentum. And even at the end of Game 2, and I'm sure all you guys watched it, at the end of Game 2, with a little bit more accurate shooting, we at least take it to OT. And I think the Canes kind of held on by the skin of their teeth in that game. And I think they knew that. And I think the Bruins knew that. And that started to build the momentum. Now, the fact that they answered after Tuukka Rask leaves with positivity and not – putting their heads down. Now, that's, I'm sure, down to the leaders we have on the team, which Mike already talked about. But I think a little bit of momentum has started to build. Do we have the most momentum in hockey right now? No, but we know we have talent, and we started to at least build it. So I agree with you, Mike. Bruins in 6, and we'll see what happens after that.
So we now have another playoff series to talk about that starts tomorrow down in Orlando. So we go from the Great White North to Florida. Sorry, Ray. I know you lived there and teach there for a little while, but it is still Florida. So we're gonna head down to Orlando, and we have the Bruins in 5 or 6. I got them in 5. You guys got them in 6. But let's talk.
I got them in 5 too.
You got them in 5 too? All right, perfect. Well, that's the end of the show. Have a good night, guys. So now we talk about the Boston Celtics, who open up a series against the 76ers tomorrow night, the 17th of August. I believe that's a 6:30 start for the Celtics and 76ers tomorrow. Bruins are 8 o'clock tonight. Celtics are 6:30 tomorrow against the 76ers. Guys, Brad Stevens, who's been here since 2013, I can't believe he's been here that long. Brad Stevens just signed a new contract, a contract extension, and I know we have some good opinions on this one. Ray, I'm gonna start with you first on our. What is it? A 5-year extension?
So I don't think the numbers have been released yet. If they did, I didn't see them. But so I'll go back in the time travel to 2013. My initial hot take was that I was not a fan of this signing. Yes, I saw what happened at Butler, but to me, he was what I call a horseshoe coach, which is, it was almost. He almost won this. He almost won that. And it's like, wait a minute, you're coming from the Atlantic 10 to the Atlantic Division. You're not going to do much. And that first season, I was proved right. Because they went 25-57. But at the same time, I said, well, okay, like they won some games that they shouldn't have won. Like I remember Jeff Green hitting that game winner in Miami. Actually, I was at that game down there because I was like, well, they're going to get beat by 20, but they end up winning. But I mean, Brad eventually has kind of won me over. Some things he does strategy-wise still kind of, burns my soul, but he overall, he is a good coach. I just want to see them at least get to the finals while he's here at least one time and hopefully win it.
Bobby.
Yeah, I from the moment we hired Brad Stevens, I knew that this man was the solid basketball mind that we needed here in Boston, especially following up one of the most successful tenures that we've had in a very long time. I knew the man that replaced Doc Rivers had to be someone that not only could reach that level of motivation in basketball intelligence, but in my personal opinion, is above Doc Rivers when it comes to that kind of basketball level. What just stands out to me is the teams that Brad Stevens has been able to not only lead to success, but have actual runs into the playoffs. You think of that 2014 Celtics team, whose best player, Evan Turner and Jared Sullinger. This man led that team to the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like when you think about what Brad Stevens really is, he's a basketball mind that can take any team and lead them to basketball success. Mike, I know you have the same sentiments, man.
So I think that Brad Stevens is the best coach of the Celtics in our generation. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about why, Rayshawn, before you jump at me. Doc Rivers left because he did not want to rebuild. Brad's rebuild took 1 year before they made the playoffs again. He'd been to 2 Eastern Conference Finals. He has cultivated a group of players that went from like Isaiah Thomas to Jared Sullinger to, Kyrie Irving, it did not work out. But I'm telling you, the reason that Doc left is because he did not want to be part of a rebuild. He thought he had earned the right to have elite talent handed to him like he did in Boston and go wherever he wanted to go to do that. Brad Stevens should be the coach for the next 10 years as far as I'm concerned, and I think they're probably going to win 2 championships with him as opposed to the one that we did with Doc.
Mike, you have such a knack. Oh my God, did so badly. Mike, you have such a knack for putting me in a position to attack or defend things I don't really want to attack or defend. I love Brad Stevens. I totally echo the sentiments that you guys have had. I wasn't even as unsure about him as Ray was when he first came in. Like, to me, a young coach should coach a young team. A young coach should be there for a rebuild. And when you're rebuilding, you're gambling no matter what. And I think it was a good idea. It's a 6-year contract, by the way, for $22 million, if anyone's curious. And I think he deserves every penny and every day of it. But to say that he's better than Doc Rivers is mind-boggling because he hasn't proven that yet. I mean, yes, has he achieved going to the playoffs with teams that maybe didn't deserve that? Totally. Has he overachieved in certain seasons? Yes. Is he one of the best play callers I've ever seen in the NBA from a timeout? Absolutely. Doc Rivers has a championship in Boston. End of story. He has a championship. Now, Brad doesn't. He's proven that he can get to the playoffs every year, but last time I checked, we're here in Boston. That's not good enough. When you're here in Boston, Massachusetts, and you have a sports team for a franchise here, you got to win. You got to go win. We know that. So at the end of the day, unless Brad can either mold or convince or make superstars out of what he already has and have them go win, he's not on Doc's level. Doc took definitely three, maybe four big personalities and had them all reading off the same hymn sheet, all singing off the same songbook, and going and having an insane start to the regular season. And then we all know the story from there. Well, I don't want to get bogged down in how great the 08 Celtics season was, but Brad had Kyrie Irving on his team. And I don't think it's Brad's fault what happened with Kyrie Irving, but he didn't calm him down. He didn't stop him from saying the things he was saying in the media. He didn't get the rest of the team playing around him. Now, like I said, Mike, you get me in these positions where I'm leveling criticisms at people I don't really want to. But if that's Doc Rivers, does Kyrie pipe down a little?
Well, so that's where they're different, and that's where I want to jump in, because it kind of half defending both of your points here, which I'm always so good at, is the fact that Kyrie Irving, you want to sit here and compare Stevens and Rivers, and that's kind of like apples and oranges. But you also want to throw Kyrie into the conversation, and who would Kyrie have been closest to on the 08 Celtics? Probably a Garnett, a very outspoken person. I don't want to say Kevin Garnett. That's probably an insult to Kevin Garnett to say he's anything like Kyrie.
Rondo.
Well, but see, I don't think Rondo... Mentality wise. Sure, but not at that point necessarily, because Rondo in 08, he was still young. And it was probably a great thing and also a bad thing that he was learning from Garnett, Allen, and Pierce, because then that kind of developed. I mean, his personality was his personality, but I think that also developed who he became in the NBA, where he had that extra thing we're talking about here, that Kyrie sort of mentality. And
very nice way to put it, Joe.
Thank you. When you're talking about Rivers and Stevens, switch the roles. Put Stevens at his age now with the team in 08, they don't win a championship. They just don't. I don't think they do.
Sure they do.
Take Doc Rivers and put him in today, right now. They're probably not as good. Kind of going to what Dave said of Doc didn't want a young team, but Brad does. Doc got the veteran, ready to win now, guys that were hungry, that hadn't had it and want it. Where Brad gets the guys that he can build and elevate to a point where hopefully they do go on to win something. The biggest issue is, Mike, and you said it, he turned it around. He rebuilt 1 year back in the playoffs, and they've consistently been there, and they've consistently gone to the playoffs, but they haven't gotten to that level that Doc got them to. But again, just to mix it up, maybe one or the other doesn't get them there if they're in those situations. You know what I mean? Ray, what do you think?
So, no, because now I'm going back to Mike, because I knew Mike was going to go here with this. So, okay, so he joins there in 2004, 2005, right? They go 45-37. They win the Atlantic Division, losing the first round to the Indiana Pacers. Next year, they go 33-49. The next year, they go 24-58. Then they trade the number 5 pick to get Ray Allen. Then they get KG later on that summer, and the rest is history. If you had 2 seasons like that where you go 33-49 and then 24-58, why the hell would you want to continue to rebuild after you've won the championship if you've been to another final? I don't get that. He did earn the cachet. You go to the finals of 08. You win 62 games in 2009 when KG got hurt after 40 games. You take a team that really was limping to the finals in 2010. There's no way they should have got there as a 4th seed, but they found a way to get there. They won another 50 games in 2010, I think, 2010, 2011. They steady built. Like once they had the talent there, they got the job done, or they were contenders every year. The difference with Brad is he's built young talent, but when he's gotten the superstar like Kyrie, they weren't able to get it done. And I believe that 2017, 2018 team, I believe if Doc Rivers was the coach of that particular team, they absolutely would have got to the finals. They absolutely would have got there.
Because Kyrie would have been –
Kyrie would have fell in line, in my opinion. Now, to Brad's credit, that team did win 16 games in a row that year of Kyrie's first year there. That team was clicking. It seemed like the chemistry was there. And then after Kyrie got hurt, unfortunately, things kind of went away. But just to say, to me, like I said, when you earn the cachet, like I said, you won, you've been to a finals, I just think, to me, he earned that chance to get another team that was going to be able to compete.
I'm going to be really quick here. So I'll make it really quick. So if I do believe that if you put 3 Hall of Famers on a team with Brad Stevens as the coach, he will win a championship. Eric Spoelstra did it. Doesn't take that much. I do think,
and Stevens is a better coach than Spoelstra.
Correct. I also think that Doc Rivers had the ability to have one maybe off person in that room, and it was Rondo. But he was a young basketball player around 3 pretty centered people, and he had to fall in line. When you bring in a Kyrie Irving and he's the one that's mentoring the young talent there, that is a diseased locker room, and it doesn't matter who your coach is. They're not winning anything. Brad Stevens got the most out of that team minus Kyrie Irving, and I don't think that Doc would have put as much work or effort into molding that young talent.
Dave is itching, but I got to go to Bob, 30 seconds, and we got to move on.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Mike's sentiments there. When it comes to Brad Stevens, I think buy-in with him is the most important thing to his system. So I think coming into that KG, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce season, that they were going to buy in to any great coach that you put them, because all they wanted was a championship. And in my opinion, I think that team would have been better with Brad Stevens, because they would have bought in to a better system, a better coach, and better motivation than what Doc gives. Listen, I'm not saying Doc's not great, but he's shown time and time again he does need those Hall of Famers. He couldn't win in L.A. with Paul and Griffin. That's all I'm saying.
Well, just a final word. So, Doc Rivers, while he was in Boston, 416 and 305. That's a 576 winning percentage.
Yep.
Brad, while he's been here so far, 318 and 246, a 563 winning percentage.
Yep. So 5 out of those 9 years, he had 3 Hall of Famers there. So that's all I'm going to say to that.
So final question.
943 wins, though.
Hang on. Final question. Are we buying in on Brad Stevens for the next 6 years, yes or no?
Yes.
Of course we are, because like I said, Mike loves to make us, as Boston sports fans, defend or attack.
It's what he does. It's what he does best.
But he does the best. That's why we have him here. But I will say this. Mike Marcangelo is such an intelligent guy that he actually just a second ago got away with calling Kevin Garnett a centered person. I don't know if anybody missed that.
Oh, no, I got that.
The least centered individual I think I've ever seen. But, here we are.
But he was centered, too, during that, and I don't want to go off on a team.
When he played the 5, maybe, but not personality-wise.
Sure. But that's all that matters, right, is if you can center him on the court. And that was the problem, that no one could center Kyrie because he allowed off-court personality to take over on-court personality and vice versa. So real quickly, we're going to get back to the Celtics, but as we get close to 6 o'clock here, I want to do a couple things. And the first thing is tell you where you can find us on social media and where you can find our podcast. So we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you find your podcasts. We are at Night Wrap on Twitter. We are at Night Wrap SNSW on Instagram. Sunday Night Sports Wrap on Facebook, the SNSW Podcast on YouTube. We are wherever you listen to your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeart. Links will be in the description below, but you can also find all this information on our Buzzsprout page at snsw.buzzsprout.com. And just a quick thing is that our first thing here that's going to come out tomorrow on our podcast is the Armchairs Ask Athletes, and this will be uploaded as well to YouTube and to our podcast. So if you missed anything of this, but definitely check out the Armchairs Ask Athletes podcast where Dave and Mike sat down with MMA fighter Hilarie Rose. It's an incredible interview, and we said it earlier in the show, if you're not a huge UFC fan, you will be after you listen to this podcast and this interview with Hilarie Rose. And another podcast I want to plug is the New England Championships Rewrap, which the first episode of that is going to come out next Tuesday. And basically what that is we walk through every single championship that the Patriots, Red Sox, Bruins, or Celtics have won in the last 20 seasons. And we start with the 2001 New England Patriots, who, as Bobby says in the open of it, is probably one of the most improbable championships by a Boston sports team in the last 20 years. And I say it, and I think we all echo it during the podcast, is that it without that championship, we may not have the other championships by the Patriots or any of the other teams, just based on how everything was elevated. And one thing can change the past and the future. But, Bobby, this was so much fun to talk about. It was so much fun to be a part of with you guys. And, it really it brought me back. And if you want to hear me get emotional, listen to it. This is actually going to come out in 2 parts. I should mention that too. This is going to come out in 2 parts because it took us 3 hours to record this. And in part 1 is the regular season plus the divisional round against the Raiders. And the second half of this podcast is the AFC Championship game against the Steelers and Super Bowl 36 against the Rams. And if you want to hear me get emotional, listen to part 2 in 2 weeks, but listen to the whole thing. This really brought us back. And Bobby, I'm gonna go to you first as the host of this podcast. Go ahead.
So exactly what Joe was just saying is the exact reason why I had this idea and why you guys loved it so much is because of the emotion and the memories that do go behind all these championships that we've experienced, especially with this 01, Joe. I have to say, just you talking about it, I'm not even lying. You might be able to, I got goosebumps over here. I'm not even kidding. That 01 championship is definitely the most special to me. It was the first one I've ever experienced, and I think everyone will experience that and feel that when we're talking about it during that pod. I'm really excited for people to hear this and this series just because I really feel like everyone that is a Boston sports fan, and even just a sports fan in general, when you hear the connection that we all actually have with these championship stories and the things that go behind it, whether it be following the regular season, following the magic of that moment where you realize, like, oh my God, we might actually win a championship here. It is something that is undescribable in sports. So I can't even think of the words for it right now. But I just think if you like sports, you like championships, you like hearing us talk, this is definitely a podcast that you're going to want to listen to. I mean, what other opportunity are you going to ever hear to have Joe Malkin cry? I mean, it happens more than once on the same podcast, and it does. That just shows you right there. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to echo what you were saying here and just say, the biggest point is we all get caught up in everything going on now, and we never really think back to what it was and how we got to where we are now. And the 2001 Patriots team, the Super Bowl 36, everything that happens, you'll hear it in the podcast. But it's why we all love sports, man. And that's really what you have to take into listening to that is that there was life. There was a time where the Patriots didn't have 6 Super Bowl rings. There was a time, and not just staying with this episode, but there was a time when Red Sox fans had waited 86 years to win a championship. There was a time where the Celtics had waited 22 years to win. And we're talking about Boston. Dave said it before. This is Boston, man. You got to win. And Dave, as somebody who wasn't there to record this podcast as you were not on the first championship rewrap, kind of give us your feelings.
I mean, yeah, I felt sort of lucky to not be on it because I got to sit back as an audience member and really enjoy the product. As you can see from my Brian Urlacher jersey, I'm not a Patriots fan, but in 2001, I was. They went in there as the underdog. The greatest show on turf was meeting them in the Super Bowl, and that Rams team looked completely unbeatable to anyone that had been paying attention. And it's one of the biggest Cinderella stories in the history of sports. It was a long time ago. And like Joe was just saying, it's hard to imagine the New England Patriots in football as an underdog. It seems like the most foreign thing in the world 19 years on, but it was the case. And I remember being a young kid and my team, the Bears, weren't in there, but I was cheering for the underdog. That's what you do when your team's not in there. You go for the underdog, and man, did that passion really come through. And I have to say that anybody that wants to relive it if they were there. If you're young and you were never there and you've heard some stuff about it, you'll get all the information you possibly need, because this transported me personally right back to 2001, where I was sitting in my living room in Chicago, watching a team that I didn't know I was going to have to spend the next 19 years hearing about. Just watching this team just completely, in a completely unlikely fashion, beat the best offense I had ever seen. And honestly, one of the best offenses I've ever seen, and making me fall in love with football even more than I already was as a little kid. And I can hear that even though you guys are Patriots fans, that exact same thing happened to all of you, and the nostalgia and the passion just shows completely through on this pod. So if you have the desire and if you want to go back to that and you want to relive it, I really do recommend checking this out when it comes out in a week's time.
So it'll come out Tuesday the 25th. Sorry, Ray, I'll get right to you there, but I just wanted to play off of what Dave just said. Episode 1 of this will come out Tuesday, August 25th. Episode 2 will come out Tuesday, September 1st. And again, listen to the whole thing. We really do run through the whole episode, through the whole season, the playoffs and everything. And Bobby even makes mention of it because I say it about 15 times in the first 10 minutes. But I was there, season ticket holder, ended up at the Super Bowl. Some great stories from all of us, really. And the perspective of it, Dave, I think is really interesting, because Mike and I have two very different perspectives on this season, even though we both lived it miles away from each other, which is really, really a cool factor into this entire series. Ray, go ahead.
Yeah. Now for me, I think this probably would be my most favorite type of show that we do. Because obviously we have 11 more to get into with that, but man, it was just so awesome to see the passion and for us to share the memories that we had on there. And like I said, so hopefully, even though some of us didn't stay Patriots fans after that happened, Bob. But it was a really good experience, and like I said, I hope you guys love it.
And, that was, again, we have to mention when we say all these podcasts, because he is the best producer that we could find, in the world. And this is produced by Craig D'Alessandro, and he produces the AAA, the Armchairs Ask Athletes podcast. And we can't give Craig enough credit. And Dave and Bob have worked really hard on both of those podcasts. So, again, check out Armchairs Ask Athletes tomorrow morning, Monday, August 17th. And check out the first episode of the New England Championship rewrap on Tuesday, August 25th. And episode 2 will come out on Tuesday, September 1st. So let's get back.
I produce just about everything.
He's producing this right now, if you can believe it. So real quick,
after this is over, putting it right on there. It's a lot of work, but I hope you all like it.
There's Craig patting himself on the back again. So real quick, I want to get back into the Celtics just for a few minutes, as we do have a couple minutes here. So there's two notes I have here, but I just kind of want to run through it. Again, the Celtics series against the 76ers begins tomorrow night in Orlando. The Celtics went 5-3 in the bubble, and it was really interesting. They had a 4-game run where they scored 149 points and absolutely blew the Nets out of the water. And then in the next 3 games, they scored 122 points in each of the games and won them all. It's really weird that would happen in any sport, honestly, that they would score the same amount of points in 3 games. So another thing I want to mention is Marcus Smart's performance in the bubble. And Bobby, you've been very adamant about the Celtics bubble play and the play of Marcus Smart. So I want to start with you on your thoughts.
Yeah, and so I know, DK, you have the same exact thoughts when it comes to Marcus Smart on this, but Marcus Smart, to me, is the life and blood of this basketball team. I know that he may be one of the most frustrating basketball players to ever watch, but what he does is beyond what you see. And this goes back to, I believe, 2000, to his rookie season, to that first Brad Stevens year. Marcus Smart, to me, has been the standout basketball player since, and he's honestly been the only one who's been here since that first Brad Stevens year. And DK, I know you think the exact same thing when it comes to what he brings. It's that intangible and what he does on the court. You could see it as soon as he steps on the court.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm so happy. I'm not happy about our place in the East, but I'm happy that we're playing the 76ers first. The kind of mental smallness of the Philadelphia 76ers has just completely shown through over the past few years of the playoffs when we play them. Like, we live absolutely rent-free in their head. And a lot of the reason for that is because they don't have a guy like Marcus Smart. They don't have a culture that Boston has. They don't have an intangibles guy, like you said, Bobby, like Marcus Smart. Like, he comes in there, he plays the kind of tough, gritty, hustle play defense that Philadelphia just can't take, And now with Ben Simmons hurt and gone, even though he started to shoot kind of well, which was making me a little bit nervous because I'm pretty sure I've had actual nightmares about Ben Simmons learning to shoot the 3-ball. But with him gone, it's Joel Embiid, wait until he has one bad game and he is just going to completely switch off. It's going to be all over. Marcus Smart's going to be all over them. Wait for the moment, and I promise you this will happen, where tiny Marcus Smart insists on guarding Joel Embiid in a completely absurd situation and somehow takes the ball off him, goes the other way. And yeah, he's probably going to jack up a 3-shot that he probably shouldn't take, but like, whatever, he earned that shot. We argue about this. We have our own group chat, that the 6 of us on the side, and we argue about this all the time. Like, I can't believe Marcus took that shot. It's like, well, he earned the shot. You know what I mean? Like, he's the one who went, played man-on-man defense, had fast hands, had a hustle play, and then got back. So it's like, whatever, it's a bonus. Go ahead and take it,
I think we watched a string of those shots, and I was like, DK, I've seen 5. He's missed all 5, and he stole the ball to get that possession. But, like, I think so. For those of you listening or watching, like, this is not going to happen often, so get ready. I think I was wrong, and I think you all are right about him.
And that's the end of the Sunday Night Sports Wrap.
I don't think you can quantify what he brings to that team in terms of, like, heart, gut, grit. I just think he's willing to do the things on the court that most others aren't. So yeah, if that earns him the right to jack up 15 threes and only make 6 of them, that's great. But I do think because we have him, we are better off with him than without him, for sure.
Ray, what do you think? Celtics series predictions. Give me something.
Yeah. So I do think that we beat Philly in 5. Like, at first I thought 6 because I felt that this is before Simmons went down, but once he went down, I was just like, well, this should be what it was 2 years ago when we faced them. I feel like their team dysfunction, meaning Philly's dysfunction, is very similar to what the Celtics had last year. And they're trying to, like, understate it, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But as we learned with the Celtics, it really can be a big deal, and it can really be the detriment to a team. So I think they beat him in 5 games. I just think there's a game that Joel Embiid is going to get like 38 and like 18. And he's going to dominate. But his biggest issue is that he doesn't want to dominate every night. And for what reason, I don't know, because he's a phenomenal talent. But the Celtics are deeper. The Celtics are more cohesive. And like I said, they're just more talented, and they're a better team, so they should win it in 5 games.
Rayshawn, is there any sense of, like, one of their, because the Sixers have their star player hurt, right? Like, is there any sense to you as a true basketball like encyclopedia and fan that maybe this is where the Sixers like rally for each other and they put on a great series? Like, can that happen with them?
So it's I mean, obviously anything's possible in that regard, but
somebody said that once.
Yeah, we'll get to that on a later episode. But I think that it can happen, but with this team, I just don't see it happening. Like, I don't see them rallying around each other like how we did when Kyrie and Gordon went down a couple years ago. And like I said, those Rozier, Brown, those guys played out of their minds. But there's a lot of things that are going to have to go right for them to click. So their rookie Matisse Thybulle, who actually the Celtics drafted and we traded for the Carson Edwards pick. He's actually a really, really good defender. But Kemba Walker's going to cook him if he's on him all night. It's a wrap. They don't have anyone that can guard Jalen. Like the Celtics have 4 guys that can get you 25 at any given time.
Right.
And Ben Simmons is the most versatile defender. So without him, it's going to be hard to guard. But, I mean, like I said, they could rally around for a game, maybe 2, but I just don't see them playing inspired basketball the whole series is going to get them the 4 wins.
So if you remember back to, right, going off the same point, first, I was so disappointed when the Celtics traded that Matisse Thybulle pick.
Yeah, he's nice. He's nice, but, oh well.
want from a young player because he plays defense. He's got the intangibles. All he's got to do is work on that shot. And I think a shot, honestly, to me, is the easiest thing to fix in a basketball player. And secondly, I also completely agree. I think with the Celtics, all you got to do is work Embiid. Every single minute he's on the floor, you got to make him do as much as he possibly needs to do because he's the most out-of-shape basketball player in the NBA. And if you make him actually work and do things on defense, make him go out to the three-point line, make him actually be that stretch five that he is, he's only going to give you a solid 25 minutes a game. So I think it's 5, maybe even 4 without Simmons. I think that's a huge blow to the Sixers. Huge.
The Celtics win this series, basically.
Yeah, easily.
The best thing that we offer as a team, I think, is that our wing play is unmatched. We have so many different guys that can versatile, sure, in offense, but amazing on the switch in defense. And what we do to Embiid, not to get too technical, but we always do to Embiid is we start to pick him up high. Well, like you said, Bobby, you can really beat him up and he gets really tired really fast. Mm-hmm. I think he's a phenomenal basketball player personally, but because he gets so tired and he gets in his head, Tatum, even though he's a little bit undersized, he will start off the series picking him up really high in the front court and he'll beat him up a little bit, switch him off to Jalen. Jalen's so underrated, I think, and such an athletic specimen that when he gets off on you, like, you feel his strength, and he's just going to be tired by the fourth quarter. I totally agree with you, Ray. Like, I really do think that he'll go off one game, and I almost think we might let him, I think it might be a let the rest of the guys beat us night. And the way I disagree with you is I think he will go off for 38 points and they'll still lose. The 76ers have that kind of, they're kind of that sort of team, you know what I mean? And I think the thing I'm looking most forward to is Joel Embiid's comments after the game, because he's always so honest in how badly we beat them up. And I just can't wait to hear it,
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's because he knows that it's not a robbery, which he said himself. But I don't trust Tobias Harris. Like, I mean, my thing is, dude, you signed a 5-year deal for $180 million. Like, you're getting $36 million a year, and you make no impact.
None.
Like, yeah, you were good coming out of Tennessee. Okay, great, but you've done nothing really since you've been in the league. You disappeared in L.A. You disappeared in Orlando. You're just a disappearing act. Get it together. You get paid too much money to not make an impact. Now, if he plays well and, like I said, Josh Richardson and Shake Milton and those guys kind of do something, maybe we have a series, but there's too many variables that have to work in order for them to do well. So either way, Boston's got this, and, see you in the second round, Toronto.
So I know we have a lot to say on the Celtics, and I know we actually have an NBA point here that Bobby's been itching to get to, and we're not going to get to it right now. So, Bobby, save. No. I know.
Can I just add? So I think that makes – so I think that's why Ben Simmons is so important to the 76ers team, is because he lets Joel Embiid not work that hard. He lets him be Joel Embiid and not have to exert all that energy to be the basketball player that he possibly can be. That's what Ben Simmons is. He may not shoot, but he's a great point guard, and he's a phenomenal basketball player. He does all the little things right, and that's why Joel Embiid can be out of shape. So that's why I think when Simmons is out of there, it really exposes that entire team. And I can't believe that Al Horford has not come up once in this entire discussion. No one.
He didn't come up because he didn't come up all season.
Exactly.
No, but that's the thing, though. If there's a time he's going to come up, then it's the playoffs. But because he's been so misutilized in Philadelphia, like that, and that's the only reason why we're not talking about him. We're not saying because he's a bad player, because, like I said, playoff Al, as Tatum used to affectionately call him, he always showed up in the playoffs while he was here in Boston. And I'm sure he'll do the same thing. But because they don't let him be, his strength is a playmaker. He's one of the best passing big men this league has ever seen. Ever. So not just in this era that ever seen. And if they don't do a lot of high-low action, like I said, not to get technical like Dave said, but if they don't have him run stuff at the top of the key to maybe throw something over the top to Embiid, or to have somebody run off like a curl screen or whatever, like he's not effective like that. Not at this stage of his career. So
let me ask you this, Ray. Let me ask you this, because like what I was so worried about when we traded Horford, especially to the 76ers, was that they were going to learn to play fast basketball. When we had Horford and Morris on the floor at the same time, God, did we stop the ball? You know what I mean? Like any kind of smooth motion play, moving the ball quickly. Like those two guys are ball stoppers. Like I like Marcus Morris last season. I really did. But he holds on to the ball. So does Horford. Like you said, he's a playmaker from the top. So it's like, but the way that they underutilize him is that I really do think that what they should be trying to do is getting the ball up to him quickly like we used to try to do and have him start to make plays. But what they're trying to do is use him as this sort of like off big man off the ball big man to Embiid and stuff. And it's like, that's just not how he plays. Now, maybe they were saving it for the playoffs. Like maybe it'll click. Like, do you think if Horford was used correctly and used to move the ball inside, we are so susceptible to an athletic, big playmaking big man. You know, that's the worst thing that the Celtics have. So like, do you think that might catch us up?
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. But like I just don't trust Brett Brown enough to put him in positions to have multiple actions in a quarter to say, okay, you know what, Al, we're going to run it through you where you're going to dive to the basket and then kick out to a corner three, or you're going to draw two, dump it out to Embiid, get an and one. They don't let him coach in Philadelphia. I don't think he's a terrible coach, but they don't let him coach. So because they don't let him coach, that's why they're going to be going home early, and he's probably going to lose a job before Christmas.
And I don't think we ever had any doubts about that coming into – they signed Horford. A, I remember seeing the salary they signed him to, like, Wetter Horford. And B, that they were going to misutilize him. You knew that the structure of that team wasn't going to fit into what Al Horford did best.
Right.
And I think that speaks to exactly what the Sixers are. Is they're a team of names rather than a system or an actual successful basketball program. Right. And that's why I think that with this core that they have, even with an added Jimmy Butler, they couldn't even get to the finals. The Celtics have an easy cakewalk in this one for sure.
Yeah. Philadelphia didn't need Horford. They didn't need him to be in Boston.
So with that, we could probably go on about the Celtics forever. And I know we have the Giannis Antetokounmpo incident that Bob wanted to get to. So we'll try and get to that later on. But I want to move on to a sport that doesn't have a bubble, and that's the NFL. You know, we talk about the NHL, we talk about the NBA, but the NFL is going to take a different route to all of this. They're going to play in their normal 32 host cities, kind of what Major League Baseball is doing with the exception of the Buffalo Blue Jays. And the teams are basically, they have, as of 10 days ago, allowed as many players as they want to opt out. 66 players in the NFL have opted out for the 2020 season, including 8 of them on the New England Patriots, including Marcus Cannon, who, if you are a Patriots fan and you follow close enough, Marcus Cannon did have cancer a few years ago, and probably a pretty good reason as to why he is not playing in the 2020 season. Patrick Chung, Dante Hightower are 2 of the other players for the New England Patriots who have decided to opt out for this season. It's an interesting situation with the NFL. You look at it from an NCAA standpoint and what they have deemed possible to play and what they have deemed not possible to play. But the NFL is going to move forward as of now with their season. And what I have seen is that the NFL is allowing players that have a medical reason for opting out will be paid $300,000 for this season, and that money it'll roll their contract to next year, and that money that they get this year will come out of their contract. That's the way that I understand it. Players like Patrick Chung and Dante Hightower, who are not opting out because of a medical reason, they will get $100,000. Same thing. It'll come out of their contract next year, and this year is basically a wash for those guys. My first question to you guys is, and I'm going to go to Mike on this one because I've asked this question already, and he's answered it already. Mike, does the NFL play in 2020?
Yes. Yeah, I think they do. I think it may look different. I don't know how you're going to have some teams having home fans and some teams not. I know that Jerry Jones has said that they're going to have fans in the stands there. I mean, it's a 100,000 seat stadium. If you have 25,000 people in there, like socially distant, that's fine. You can do it, right? But I think the NFL is too big to fail, and I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna wait. If the MLB can play with their pandemic that's ripping all their teams apart, how is the NFL not going to do it?
Yeah, and that's one thing I look at with the league is you say they're too big to fail. We know that Major League Baseball, if it went away, honestly, we may not notice. We may not notice. The NBA and the NHL, we probably would. It's much easier for an arena-type sport to do a bubble than it is for a large stadium sport. I mean, even the MLS figured it out, and that's because they have smaller crowds. But you even go internationally and look at the English Premier League, who they're getting 40 to 100,000 fans in a normal year, depending on which stadium you're talking about. But the NFL, kind of to what your point there, Mike, I mean, 68,000 in Gillette Stadium, but over 100,000 at the Spaceship in Arlington. And how many fans are you really going to get? Are you actually going to do it? So that's another question of, will they have fans this season at all in any place? And personally, I don't think so. I think they are going to play. But Mike, unlike, and to everybody else in the room, unlike Major League Baseball, we're not talking about 3 or 4 game series, 2 game series. You can play double headers. You can make them up on off days. The NFL plays once a week. So if in week 2 there's an issue with a team and they can't play, you now have to wait 14 days-ish. And now we're talking about 2, possibly 3 games of a 16-game season. What are they going to do that Major League Baseball isn't? Or what can they do that Major League Baseball can do more easily than they can?
Well, before you kick it to Craig or to Bob, I just want to say, I think because of the financial aspect of football, I just think that they're going to have state-of-the-art testing, and I think they're going to have all the top-notch procedures that will reduce the factor of players or teams testing positive. And if that's the case, I think, if let's say 30 players on your team test positive, you probably should forfeit that week. You know what I mean? It's just that's what you might have to do in order to complete the season in the time frame that they're looking for.
Go ahead.
Unless they absolutely go into a bubble, I don't understand how it's going to work, because this is, we're preaching social distancing during this entire pandemic for the last 6 months. And now you're going to get, into my opinion, one of the most intimate sports in all of sports. Before the play, you have to huddle. You have to be literally inches away. You snap the play, you're literally on some guy's butt. To stop the play, you're right on a play, tackling the guy. I don't see how this is not going to end in not a disaster.
Well, they're going to be tested every day, I bet. I bet that they're tested every day up until game day, even on game day. And I think, Joe, you mentioned it. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much in this one, but I just think you have the ability to test the players and to do all the medical procedures better when you only play once a week as opposed to 162 games or the constant bubble season that they have in the NBA and the NHL.
So to that end, the NFL and Under Armour have developed basically a mouth shield that would, like a visor, go in front of the mouth of each player. Some players have tested this out, from my understanding, and said it's kind of strange, it's kind of odd, and it doesn't necessarily allow for the same pattern of breathing during a play because it's so close to the face. It's one way you can do it. I mean, Craig, you're absolutely right. But one thing that the NFL is king. And the one thing that the NFL has, as Mike said, more than any other sport, is the money to do it. I mean, you're telling me Jerry Jones can't test 53 players and all of his staff every day to see, at least every other day. From what I understand, a test is $140. I know that's a lot of money to some of us to go get tested. I mean, if we can't do it for free, that is. And if they're paying that amount for that many tests, to them, it's still going to be peanuts. So, I mean, Mike, you said it, and I kind of want to go around the room with this one. It's a 16-game season, okay? So, like in baseball, a 9-inning game is complete after 5 innings, 4.5 if the home team is leading. At what point is the season complete for the NFL, and would they either stop the season and crown a champion, for lack of a better term, or go straight to a playoff type format? At what point does that happen, or do they just scrap the whole thing?
So I think they have to go. I think they have to go at least 9 or 10 games. Like, if we're operating under the assumption that the season could be cut short, but I just don't think it's going to be. I don't see a world where the NFL is not on our televisions from September through February. I just don't think that. I don't think that even if it was the safest thing for the players, that they're going to do it. And I just don't. They'll be there. But again, 10 games, and then maybe you have like a play-in or something. But they're going to play 16.
Makes you wonder why only 66 out of, how many players in the NFL have opted out. Now, granted, there was 8 Patriots, but only, 58 other players around the entire league opted out of this season. So you're getting the majority of guys under contract to come in and play and do this thing. And, there has to be that unspoken thing, kind of like we talked about in the open with Tuukka Rask. Like, there's obviously details we don't know. Same thing here. We don't know the details, and that's fine. We don't necessarily have to know the details. It's not going to affect us, especially if there's no fans in the stands. But there's definitely something going on there that these guys know that we don't, that's making them feel safer to go play football. Or, and I think, Mike, you're about to do this, these guys, this is their livelihood and they know that they need to do it, and they don't want to lose a year of age, because the NFL, unlike a baseball or a hockey, you're not playing into your late 30s, into your early 40s.
Also, $350,000 relative to what they get paid every year is nothing. I mean, so they don't want to live. Some of them can't live off that, right? And some of them, their contracts, like you just said, aren't fully guaranteed. They only have the average NFL career is way shorter than, I would say, the average baseball career, right? And all that money is guaranteed. So they have to get in there, they have to play, and they have to make some tough choices to make sure they get their money.
I think 2 more things go into that too. Is I think the level of power that the NFL owners have over the NFLPA also has a lot to do with it. If you look at the people in the MLB that tested positive for the coronavirus, not one of them has been released. Someone in the NFL snuck a girl into his locker room and was waived the next day. So I think a lot of that does have to do with the power that NFL players know that the owners and anyone in charge does have over their livelihood, over what the MLB has. And also, I think the NFL has a realistic outlook on, they know people are going to test positive. It's just a matter of handling once they do. I think the MLB, that's been the worst case scenario for them, is like, once someone tests positive, they haven't had those protocols in place to get that positive person away from the team. So then it spreads throughout that entire team so rapidly that all of a sudden you have 4 teams. By the time you realize what happened, I don't see that happening with the NFL. Just like the NBA, I think they're just a better run organization. So I'm with you guys. Football this year is happening.
So to take more of a New England approach to all of this, the New England Patriots lost 3 starters on defense. We all know that they've signed Cam Newton. Last week they signed running back Lamar Miller. Should they play this season and they do get into this thing and everything goes relatively to plan, looking at the team as currently constituted with no preseason football, how does this New England Patriots team do this season?
I mean, I still think they're going to go 11-5 at worst, maybe like 10-6. I think one thing that Patriots fans and all of us we're going to have to think about is, like, our crutch was the defense. I think that might be removed now. I think that you're going to see not as great of a defensive showcase as you thought you were going to see when coming into the season. But I just think that the Patriots own that division. I don't think the Bills are going to take it from them this year. So I'm like I said, I'm thinking 11-5.
It's funny. We started talking about the difference between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New England Patriots, for the obvious narrative of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. But like we've seen with basketball, like, sure, Jerry Jones, you can say there's going to be fans in the stands. Great. Jerry Jones says a lot of things. Jerry Jones says we're going to win a Super Bowl this year, every year. They don't. Sorry, Bobby. But he says a lot of things, and that's absolutely not going to happen. It's just not. So, yeah, we can argue all day over whether we're going to have an NFL season, and I completely agree with you, Mike. They're too big to fail. There's too much money involved. Safety is just not going to come first. You know, if they can make it safe to avoid the bad press, sure, but like it's just not. But as far as the Patriots go, just like basketball, bubble football, maybe it'll be that, or fanless football, or whatever it is, that's going to change things. You know, that's just going to change the landscape. There's going to be a couple of teams that are playing unexpectedly well. There's going to be players that apparently who knew were just feeding off the crowd in a way that you know they're not going to be able to do once they're playing in front of nobody. You know, when a guy like Belichick, though, he can see into players' souls in that way. You know, he's going to be able to see guys on the practice squad that he's going to be able to put him on the field and go, oh, I don't even need to worry about his mentality. Like he's just a great practice squad player. I've been waiting to bring him up. I just know that he's not like quite there mentally. He chokes on game day. Game day is going to be a different prospect. So yeah, I back Bill Belichick as I always do in these situations. Like I think they're going to 11-5, like maybe even higher.
It's going to be an interesting season with no preseason football. I mean, they're obviously going to have to cut down to a 53-man roster. And 8 guys in camp with the Patriots, or 7 now that they've signed Lamar Miller, are going to get an opportunity to make that 53-man roster. And like Dave just said, you're going to see that around a lot of teams. As teams are going to do well and guys are going to fight for some spots, because we've seen it already in baseball with a lot of minor league guys that are getting called up. When major league players get hurt or whatever else. I mean, these rosters look very different this year. We've already seen that from minor league guys in baseball, and I think you're going to see something very similar in football. All right. So, wow, great. All right, we should have stuck with the NBA, guys. That's what I'm thinking. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change gears back to the NBA, because our next topic was going to be the depressing Red Sox, which I think we can spend about 5 minutes on. But go ahead, Mike.
But before we move, I did just want to say I think we all just look for really good stories, and I think the best story out of the NFL right now is Alex Smith has been cleared to play.
Yep.
I think having 17 surgeries over the last almost 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy almost died. He almost lost his leg, and he's probably going to be the starting quarterback for the Washington football team this year. So that's a great story.
Yeah, and I mean, Washington just got their starting quarterback back, and I mean, I think we can all agree, Alex Smith, coming out of Utah so many years ago, he really did do a great job for the 49ers. He's done a good job in Washington for the football team, and it's just nice to see him. And Mike, you brought up the video that he posted online of when he came out of his house, and Dave took the words right out of my mouth. He doesn't look like he's in football shape yet. He still looked a little ginger on that leg, and I don't blame him. I mean, 17 surgeries, you have your leg shattered. We all remember Joe Theismann back in the 80s, which is still one of the worst hits in football history. I have to fast forward through that part of The Blind Side, which is an awesome movie in my opinion. But you have to fast forward through that part, because I cannot watch that Lawrence Taylor hit on Joe Theismann. And that hit right there, and if you don't know what it is, go look up Lawrence Taylor hits Joe Theismann. That was when you knew that Lawrence Taylor actually had some human in him, because that guy is just an absolute animal. But he was the first one calling over the medical team, and he knew that it was bad the moment he hit him. And Alex Smith's injury was very similar to Theismann's. Actually, it probably was worse. And thank God it happened now and not back in the 80s. We don't want it to have happened at all, but thank goodness it happened now and not back in the 80s, because like Mike said, I mean, that's a career and possibly a life over. But it's great news for Washington. It's probably literally the best news that the Washington football team has had this entire offseason, because they also had to release a player 2 weeks ago for some issues. So, we're going to be we got to be looking for these positive stories, especially in the NFL. I know we've all been watching the NHL and the NBA. Major League Baseball has been so depressing. And I think because football is king, we all want to see the NFL do well this year. We've already seen that college football, from the highest of divisions to the lowest of divisions in the NAIA and NCAA Division III have canceled or postponed seasons. I can't say canceled. I just did it, but I shouldn't. They've postponed their seasons, and I'd really hate to see the NFL do that as well. But one pressing topic I do want to go back. So we're kind of rewinding into the NBA, because I know this is a topic that especially Bob, Rayshawn, and Dave wanted to touch on. But it was the Giannis Antetokounmpo incident that happened last week. Bobby, kind of give us a run-through of this incident and give us your feelings on it.
So I'm not exactly sure what exact day it was, to be honest. It was sometime, I believe it was in the second to last bubble game for the Bucks. Giannis got a little heated and did end up headbutting. If I'm being honest, I don't remember exactly who it was. But what ended up happening was the NBA did end up suspending Giannis for one this. Now, if you watch the clip, it obviously is something that is an intentional headbutt. He obviously got in that heated argument. He got to that point where he did feel it was time to retaliate and did so. I just think, in my opinion, and DK, I don't know if you have the same sentiments, but I think this is the most contradicting thing that I've seen from the NBA all season, if I'm being honest. I just think if this is LeBron, if this is Zion, if this is anyone else, the NBA comes down hard, and not only that, but so does the national media. I think to this day we'd still be talking about it, and I think it would still be the top news story. If LeBron headbutted anyone, that's the top news story. But because it's Giannis, it's not, and that's something to me that I'll just never get. I don't know.
I mean, look, I think I agree with you in that sense. Like, I think like it would be made a bigger deal of if it was somebody else. Should it be? No. Like, honestly, even the fact that we're calling it a headbutt, it wasn't. Like, he came in hot. He was annoyed. He put his head down to get in his face, and the guy flopped a little bit. You know, as the only real, like, week to week, I watch every single game soccer fan here. Let me tell you, it wasn't new to me. You know, I think he got a little hot. Did he get special treatment? Maybe, but like, it was like, what, 2 seasons ago in the playoffs where Marcus Smart like threw a guy across the court because I think it was against the Sixers, ironically enough, where somebody hit someone going up, which is like the worst, most scumbag move you can do in basketball. If somebody's off their feet and they're going up to the hoop and you hit them, they have no center of gravity and they just go to the ground. But somebody did that. Marcus Smart ran up, shoved the guy. It's sports. You know what I mean? Like, it happens. People get mad. It is what it is. I don't think it's a big deal. What are they going to do? Like, at the end of the day, yes, it is special treatment. But would LeBron get the same treatment? Similar. You know, you don't shelve your best product. Giannis is the guy going into the playoffs that they're advertising right now. Like, it's just a bad business move if they suspend him tomorrow.
Well, especially,
let me throw. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, especially right now in the bubble and where they are at this point in the season, they need as many eyes on them as possible. And this is part of the reason why the NFL is still going to play, and something we didn't touch on, which I kind of feel naive that we didn't, is TV money. And that's the reason why the MLB is trying to do everything they can to play their season out. The NHL and the NBA have done everything they can because the money is not necessarily as high as the MLB and the NFL, but there is still money in that. We talk about the English Premier League, Dave. I mean, there's money in that too. There's TV money from NBC and the Premier League, and they need to find a way to get those ratings up. And right now, the NBA and the NHL are front and center, 2 leagues that run simultaneously with each other. And this is something that they're already talking about changing in the NBA to have the NBA go longer so they have their own playoffs. And Dave brought this up, last week in our meeting, that the NBA is looking to push that ahead. And right now in the bubble in Orlando, they cannot suspend their probably, I mean, he's top 3 in the league, right? I mean, when you think about the NBA right now, well, I still think LeBron, Dave. I know you're holding up that number 1, but I think it's LeBron and then Giannis. So, I mean, it could also depend on what coast you're on too, because I mean, which is weird because you say that LeBron's not number 1 and you literally live in LA. So it's
that's why.
Right. Yeah, probably. You're probably just tired of hearing it and seeing the billboards. So Rayshawn, go ahead. I kind of stepped on you there.
Yeah, no. So that incident was interesting for a couple of reasons. So One, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like I like Bob, I agree with you. Like had that been LeBron, yes, SportsCenter, Fox, whatever would have been leading. That'd have been a leading story. They would have broken down the psychology of it. Is this the real LeBron? You know, it would have been nauseating to say the least. But I want to go a different direction here. So the next game, they were going to be able to play the Memphis Grizzlies. And the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies was an assistant coach on Milwaukee last year. So to have a second conspiracy theory for the night, I think that they threw that game so that they could help Memphis get into the play-in game for the 8th seed. And it's crazy because it worked technically, but then Portland ended up beating them, so it didn't really work. But because say again.
I said, which worked out for the Celtics.
It worked out for the Celtics. Thankfully, since we're at least going to have the 14th pick. We have 3 first rounders, so 14, 26, and then 30. But yeah, I definitely think that they end up throwing that game against Memphis. But like I say, yeah, you can't suspend him more than one game. I maybe would have suspended him 2 or whatever, or maybe suspend it and find him or whatever. Because whether it was a real headbutt or not, like that can't happen. I think someone had brought up what's the guy from France back in the World Cup?
Zidane.
Yeah, Zidane. Yeah, so it was just like, I remember when that happened. I'm like,
that's a real headbutt.
Yeah, that was
soft.
Right. Yeah,
that was soft too. He should have hit him in the face. If he was getting the red card anyway, you might as well take the other guy with you.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. But it's just like, yeah. So I just think that's what it was. But like I said, it was unfortunate to see. But like I said, in the grand scheme of things, like it wasn't that deep. And like I said, product above everything else is key. So he's a part of the product. He is one of the main events, so to speak. So yeah, that's it. So we'll see what happens going forward.
I mean, we've seen it so many times in sports. Zinedine Zidane, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, we've seen it so many times where people get a little worked up, and like Dave said, it's emotion, man. And I mean, we get worked up during the day, and we kind of lose our cool at times, and it's going to happen. And again, kind of going back to the whole Tuukka Rask thing, the biggest difference is that they're going to get called out, on national media for it, and we're not. So, I mean, would it have been a bigger story if it was LeBron? 100%. Would it have been a different story if we weren't in the middle of a bubble play pandemic? Probably. But right now, no league can afford to lose their best player. And if Mike Trout did something in LA, actually it's the MLB, they'd probably suspend him.
If Marcus Smart did that, what would his? I was just
about to go there. Yep.
Yeah.
What? ESPN would have ripped him apart.
Right.
He has a reputation for this. Remember what he did back at Oklahoma State when he went and talked to a fan? That fan provoked them, but we're not going to go there. Like, it's just like, so the narrative always switches depending on the player, and it's unfortunate, but that's just what it is.
But isn't this a whole podcast in itself where we could sit here and talk about how media and fan influences commissioners' rulings? Yeah, right. Stay tuned. Exactly. I mean, think about the uproar for if Marcus, when Marcus Smart went into the stands, the fight at the Palace in Detroit back in 1996 or
that was in 2004.
04, the 90s. What's the difference? But the point being is, if there's more uproar, the suspension or the punishment is higher. Think about Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly gets caught on TV. I mean, I think we all love Joe Kelly. I mean, he kind of got soft here as a pitcher at the end, but in LA, he's been great, and he's great for the game of baseball. Guys like that are phenomenal for the game of baseball that are struggling, in my opinion. But because it was really the only show in town and everybody saw it and everybody watched it, Manfred felt that the Major League Baseball office had to do something about it, where Giannis, not as many people saw it. So it comes down to that too. What kind of uproar is there, and does that affect media and fan perception of the game and the league. And I think that that's something we really should touch on in a later podcast, because my feelings are the punishment has to fit the crime. And when you are in sports and you are in front of a camera, yes, you're supposed to be more composed. But I don't even really know how to finish that thought. So speaking of composed, DK, Dave Clarke, joins us all the way from Los Angeles. Even when times are different for him and he's probably still at work and we just don't know it, he's sending messages to the group chat when it's 4 a.m. here and he's still up drinking his wine at 1 a.m. in Los Angeles. But we have to go to Dave Clarke for what was always one of the best segments on the Sunday Night Sports Wrap, and that's the State of the Sizzle. So, Dave, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Well, fellas, it's been a great show, as expected. Here we are at the first State of the Sizzle in over a decade. Much like a State of the Union speech, I used to start off by letting you and our adoring listening public know how I, and perhaps more importantly, the sports watching nation was doing as a whole. So here goes. The State of the Sizzle is dope as hell. Back in March, you may have noticed, a health crisis that was sweeping the globe started to tighten its grip on the United States. Rolling lockdowns began, and for me at least, the moment the fact that we were in some serious trouble was when this damn virus started to take away sports. Watching the look on Mark Cuban's face as he seemed to read the news on his iPhone that Adam Silver had suspended the NBA, that look of complete shock threw me a little. It seemed like a guy known for his business acumen, his ability to predict markets and trends, had absolutely no idea how serious this thing has gotten. Adam Silver is a smart guy too, perhaps the commissioner of sports. If he was shutting down the National Basketball Association during one of the most interesting seasons in its storied history, something was really wrong here. Sure, we probably should have already known. If I had a little bit more bandwidth available for health data and international news, I may have been on top of it. But then who would my family come to for Brian Urlacher's impressive rookie season numbers? 124 tackles and 8 sacks, franchise rookie records, despite not starting until week 3. I can't move out valuable information like that in order to stay on top of a pandemic. You know what I mean? The point is, for many of us, sports are a constant, maybe in some cases our only constant. I can't tell you the pleasure I get when I'm coming home from work knowing I have a Celtics game to watch or it's Monday Night Football. I knew I loved sports, but I didn't realize how much until they were all taken away all at once. The totemic and rolling nature of these great athletic competitions are what some relationships are built on. Fathers and sons may be sometimes completely different people, have completely different values, but if they can sit next to each other once a week and cheer for the same team, they have themselves a platform to build something, to see one another in a way they may not have been able to otherwise. Sports are important. Now they're back, albeit in a little bit of a different way, but they're back. I can't tell you how much of a return to normalcy that was for me. Waking up every day for months to more bad news, more dumb tweets, different information, old information. Is this person okay? Make sure they're staying inside. They had pneumonia once when they were 12, constantly. We're still in that fight, don't get me wrong, but at least I can forget about it now for an hour or two and watch a game. Which brings me to this show and to us. We all met in college 10 years ago, and our college had a radio station. We were all fairly carefree and similar people, college kids that got together on Sundays to chat about our favorite teams. Over time, our circumstances and responsibilities have changed drastically, which is natural. I moved to California to chase a career in the movies, and 18 hours a day on movie sets makes you a little bit of a different person after a while, I can tell you that. Joe is domestic as hell. Sorry, Joe, domestic as heck. He's got a house and a wife and some real cute kids, plus what seems to be his dream job, no biggie. Rayshawn survived what many don't. I moved to Florida and back, and now he's molding future minds as an educator, a profession we may finally start to appreciate more because of all this. The world's best producer is just that, because out of all of us, he actually pursued and succeeded at a career in radio, and he's the reason we're able to put the SNSW network together for you. Mike lost an entire person's worth of weight and donated a kidney to a family member. We knew he was an impressive guy, but he showed us all up a little bit with that one. Bobby seems to have been all over the place, and his general demeanor as a raconteur has served him well, and somehow, even as a Cowboys fan, remains the most positive and optimistic of us all. All these changes, all these growths, it can't be summarized in one state of the sizzle with any kind of accuracy. We've all had our ups, and I'm sure our downs, that have changed us, who we are, and all grow and grow up as people. The reason we're here with you again, though, is that one thing has remained the same for all of us. You guessed it. An unbridled love affair with sports. We lost sports for a while, and it wasn't the most serious thing that happened in this pandemic, not even close, but it's not the most serious thing you do or watch in a day either. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to distract you, to entertain you. Leave it to obsessives like us to take it far too seriously and dedicate chunks of our lives to bringing you a podcast network about all things sports. You folks listening at home, just enjoy. I'm so happy to be back with you fellas. I said it at the start that the state of the sizzle is dope as hell. And the reason? Sports are back. And so are we. That's it.
Let's go.
Well, yeah, I think what I really took out of that is that Rayshawn survived Florida. So, no, Dave, the state of the sizzle, kind of the history of that is you haven't missed a beat in over 10 years, man. I mean, that's awesome, dude. I mean, this is exactly why we do this show. We have people out there that love listening to us, which is great for me to hear because my wife's tired of me. But I'm just kidding. We've been dating for 10 years as of today, though, which is absolutely incredible. I don't know how.
We're married.
I don't know how she has dealt with me that long, and Craig can attest to that. But Dave, great job. That was very well written, very well said. And guys, I mean, we have been together through it all. I mean, I know we all kind of went our separate directions. In some cases, even when we lived in the same town as Craig and I do, and but we've all stuck together through all of this. And now we're even closer than we probably ever have been. Even when we were on the show together back in college, I kind of felt like, we all had 6 different directions and we came together for 2 hours on a Sunday. And over the last month, I know we started this conversation back in late May, early June. But we've all really come together more now than we ever were before. And it never would have happened without this pandemic. So much bad has come out of this thing. So much negativity, and really, if there is a positive, just to kind of go off of what Dave just said for the last 5 minutes, it's that we came closer as a group of people because of everything going on, and it definitely helps. I mean, it helps to be able to come and talk sports or politics or whatever the hell you want with anybody you want, with the people that you enjoy talking about those things with. So, guys, I think. Real quickly, again, let's go over what we have for the people going forward. I mean, again, this 2-hour live show on Sunday nights is going to be the second Sunday of every month. We're going to be here talking to you, and we want to hear what you want to talk about. If there's something you want us to talk about or a topic that you think we should touch on, whether it's Boston related or, hell, we'll talk about Korean baseball because that's a great product. I've also woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning when my kids woken me up, and I've gone and watched Australian League football. So there's a lot of things we can talk about, and we want to hear from you because there's plenty going on in the world of sports that we can come up with and build a narrative around. But we have so many different people in our lives. We want to know what you want to talk about. If this is your first time listening to us or you're not subscribed to our channels, whether it be on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart, you can find all of our channels on Buzzsprout at snsw.buzzsprout.com. We are all over social media. Rayshawn writes some awesome recaps and previews of Boston sports. Bobby posted up a nice little opinion piece on the Red Sox the other day, which we never touched on tonight, but it's probably good we didn't, because my head probably would have exploded. But we're all over social media. Twitter, we are at Night Wrap. Instagram, we are at Night Wrap SNSW. Sunday Night Sports Wrap on Facebook. The SNSW Podcast on YouTube, where you can find the monthly 2-hour show, Armchairs Ask Athletes, which comes out on Monday, the 17th of August, tomorrow morning. Again, Dave and Mike sit down with MMA fighter Hilarie Rose, who will be fighting in Dana White's Contender Series on Tuesday night, August 18th. Again, we're all going to be watching. This girl is phenomenal. If you like what you hear, I mean, she's 4-1 in her career. One thing we didn't touch on in the promo, she's 4-1 in her career, and Cheyenne Buys, who she's fighting on Tuesday, is also 4-1. This is a big fight for both of these women. And man, I'm so pumped to watch this fight, but listen to the conversation that Dave and Mike have with her, and you're going to love her too. She is phenomenal. As we mentioned, also, we have the New England Championship rewrap that's coming out on August 25th for part 1 of the 2001 New England Patriots season. And then part 2 will come out September 1st. Which will have the Super Bowl 36 in it. Great content. I mean, you guys did phenomenal. I cry. We have some good stories. I like to mention it because people are going to be like, hell yeah, I want to hear Joe cry. And I like stop, and then Rayshon's crinkling a bag of popcorn. It's phenomenal. So, sorry, Ray. Sorry, I have to drop it because it's hilarious when it happens. So good. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and all of our podcasts, we really want you to tell us how you feel. Leave us a comment, a rating, a review. Tell us what you like about the episode, what you don't like about the episode. We love constructive criticism. We give it to each other all the time. We want to know what you want to hear about more in the future. I mentioned Rayshon's blogs and everybody's blogs, and I tell you that they're going to be up on Twitter. But SundayNightSportsWrap.wordpress.com is where you can get to that website. That's the first time I've dropped that tonight. So make sure you head over there as well and check everything out. But certainly follow along if you've enjoyed everything you've heard tonight. Guys, I know we're running a little over here, but I want to give you each just a second or two to kind of maybe with the exception of Dave, because I don't think we can do it any more beautifully than Dave did. But I want to hear from Craig first. Craig, you've put so much of this together and helped us along the way and really given us some direction. We got to hear from you too, man.
I'm gonna actually keep it a little bit more local towards high school athletics. I know it's not something we touched about or will talk about that often, but it just crosses my mind that, I haven't heard as much from the fall athletic people about football, about when baseball was canceled. Now they're all in their uproar right now. I heard nothing from these people when baseball was starting to get canceled. Now all those spring sports are starting to get canceled. Now football's getting canceled. It's the biggest uproar in the world.
Well, I think
heard.
To play off that, I think baseball is one of those sports, even at the collegiate level. I've had this conversation with a number of people. Baseball is easy to play. Baseball and softball are two very easy sports that you should be able to play. I mean, I think we've all seen some sort of baseball this summer, whether it's been MLB. I mean, I've been out recruiting a little bit as well. So, things can happen there. But I'm with you, Craig. I mean, there was no uproar, but now because it's football, and football is king, as Mike has said before. So with that, good transition. Craig, thank you. Mike, what do you have to say to get us out of here?
Yeah, so my final thought is it has something really to do about sports. It's kind of about us. I think, Joe, you mentioned or one of you mentioned in college, we were just 6 people who came together for 2 hours and talked about sports. Now, we talk every day. So I think it's just been awesome out of this entire thing, just to get a good group of 6 friends that you did not have really before that you can just go to and just purposely piss off like I did to Ray earlier, and everything's going to be cool. So I'm just super excited about this entire process, and I thank you guys all for your hard work.
Ray, go ahead, babe.
So we're not cool. No, I'm kidding.
And that's the end of the Sunday Night Sports Show.
That's so fair. No. Like I said, it's been an amazing experience just to get back to this. like I said, I'm at a loss for words that we're even doing this right now, man, to be honest. Like I said, I was just someone that kind of stumbled upon just meeting you guys, and now, I'm a part of history, and we're a part of history. So it's like that's super exciting, super dope for me. And as I'll just end with this, as I'll most likely end every show until it happens. Arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor, like yesterday, and it needs to happen immediately. So.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Bobby Kelly.
Follow that up with Ray. Completely agree with that. Arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. Honestly, one of the best things I've done in a very long time is comment on a random Facebook post from 10 years ago that brought us all here together today. It's honestly one of the best random Facebook comments I've made in my entire life. I couldn't be happier to be here at this very moment. And the last thing I'll say is that the Toronto Raptors are a really good basketball team.
And to close this thing out, oh, Jesus. Dave's out of here. Dave's leaving. Dave's going to go out into the 100-degree weather in Los Angeles right now.
Wink face in that group chat this has been planned.
Of course it was planned. We should have known. We should have known the moment you hacked the Twitter that with the Cowboys content that you were going to talk about the Raptors. So, it's ridiculous, Bobby. Just to finish this thing off, thank you, everyone, for joining us. One of the biggest things we want to do through all of this, we've always wanted to do it, is to share our takes on sports with you. Share sports with your friends and family. If you love sports, if you're watching, we assume you like sports, but if there's something else, share it with friends and family because we all need something to share with each other right now with so much going on. And as important as things are in the world, no matter what year it is, no matter what time it is, we all need a distraction at some point, and it's okay to be distracted even for a little while. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We saw so many people come in and out of the Facebook Live, so many people that we hold so near and dear to our hearts. So for Rayshawn Buchanan, David Clarke, Bob Kelly, Mike Marcangelo, the best producer in the world, Craig D'Alessandro, I am Joe Malkin. Thank you for joining us for episode 1 of the Sunday Night Sports Wrap. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Night Wrap, on Instagram at Night Wrap SNSW, on Facebook, Sunday Night Sports Wrap, the SNSW Podcast on YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeart. Go to our Buzzsprout page, snsw.buzzsprout.com. Tell us how you feel about everything. And for the guys, we will see you in a month for our live show. But really listen to the Armchairs Ask Athletes tomorrow morning and be on the lookout for the championship rewrap. Our next show will be on the 27th of August. We will have, which is a Thursday, we will have a pre-recorded 1-hour podcast for you. Where we will fit in everything we can in an hour's time, even though this didn't take us 2. So, guys, thank you very much. Craig, why don't you shut this thing down and we can let Dave go eat some dinner. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Welcome to the Reverie Channel, where entertainment knows no bounds. Live concerts, on-demand music, documentaries, and short films, all in stunning HD. Now on Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Immerse yourself from home. And on Android and iOS for those on the move. Support creators with crowdfunding donations. Fuel their creativity. Join us in shaping entertainment's future. The Reverie Channel, where every view, every donation matters.
Hey, what's happening out there, everybody? This is Lawrence Ross, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my podcast, The Lawrence Ross Show.
Egomaniac.
It's a 2-hour weekly exploration into my mind. I also do sketches, celebrity impersonations.
You're out of order!
And I also do song parodies. Not too shabby for a blind guy.
Not only are you visually impaired, but you are geographically impaired.
New episodes are released every Friday. Check it out on your favorite podcasting platform or listen to it here on Society 13 on Electrocast.
Electrocast.